Hello, my crafty friends. It's Michelle, the Southern Shell, and I am here with my first video for Christmas in July. We are going to be working with air dry clay for this video, and I'm using the Sculpey, which is pretty good. It is a very good clay to use, especially for intermediate or even beginners, and it is at a good price point. I am going to just take a chunk off here and knead it in my hands to condition it just a little bit here. It really doesn't need a whole lot. The air dry clay is pretty well good to go. You just want to soften it up and with your warm hands just a little bit. I have this ice cube tray mold here, and it has these beautiful little Christmas bells, and I thought, oh man, these would make really good magnets for like your refrigerator or something like that. So I went ahead and got my air dry clay and pushed it down into that mold as best I could so it would get all of those details in there. I'm going to just create four on here, four different ones, and I'm going to fill my tray, and you see I'm just using my palette knife there. And I am just going to continue to say and to annoy anybody, I guess. I'm sorry, I don't mean to continue with my ands. But I am just going to go ahead and fill these, and I popped them in the freezer for about 20 minutes to help firm it up a little bit. This usually works really well with most of my molds and my air dry clay, and oh, these ice cube trays are a little thick. So I did have a little bit more trouble with these. They held their shape okay, but you can see that I did have some air bubbles in there where it just didn't quite fill all the way, and a little bit of distortion as I'm popping them out of that mold there. The mold is very flexible, but yeah, it was a little difficult. Well, I went ahead and I let these dry, and this actually took 2 days because it's so thick. It took 2 days to fully dry. You do not want to start painting on your air dry clay if it is not fully dry, because it will cause other problems. I did come in and sand a little bit after 1 day, and I broke off part of my bow. So all I did was take a little slip, wet it, and use it as a glue to put those two pieces back together and let it dry another full day. I am using some metallic acrylic paints here. I did a whole base coat in gold, front and back, and then I used a little black on my little baldingers. What are those called? I can't remember. Well, a baldinger, we'll just say that. I went ahead and used some red on those little berries right at the holly leaves. You see there's 2 bells that have the bows and 2 bells that have the holly leaves and the berries. So I went ahead and came in with the metallic red on those berries, and then I went ahead and used the red on the bows. I went ahead and switched these up because I knew the holly leaves would be green. So I wanted the red bow and the green leaves, and that would kind of give us a little balance between the colors on these little chunks of clay. At this point when I was making them, I did not know what I was going to do with them. I wanted to make refrigerator magnets out of them. I was not pleased with the way they had turned out, so I went a different direction, because the magnets I use are super strong. And if I'm not really pleased with my item, I'm not going to use one of my nice magnets on the back of this if I'm not pleased with the way it looks, because I would be afraid that it's, you know, for the way it looks, I'd have to price it a little bit less expensive, and it wouldn't be worth the magnet that I put on it. So I don't want to do that with these. So I just continued to go ahead and paint them. Once I get them all painted and they are dry, I am going to come in and do a little highlight. So I did a little bit of that brown. I have a little bit of metallic brown mixed in with, was that the gold? I think that was the gold, mixed in a little black in with that. And that's going to give me just a little bit of a shadow for the inside of that bell. Because, you know, if it's all one color, it's going to come out flat. You do have dimension in these molds, so you want to go ahead and add some shadowing where you can. Now you do you. You don't have to use this metallic color. I wanted to go ahead and use these metallics because of the Christmas theme. It just gives more shine, and if you hang them on your tree, then your lights are going to just reflect off of those shines on those metallics. Now I do cover them anyway with some resin, so it really didn't matter too much, but I really liked the way that they looked. I came in with my gold leaf rub and buff, and I just went over the top of that and hit where that mold, those textures came up, so that it just gives it a little bit of something extra, just lifts it to the next level here, and I like the way they turned out. You see on the red bow bell, I went ahead and put some green across where those little zigzags went across those bells, so that they have the red and green on each set of these bells. So I went ahead and, got that rub and buff on there, and I really liked the way it kind of knocked it back a little bit, but I needed to come back in with a little bit of black to make those bell dingers stand out a little bit more, because it did knock the color on those back a little too much for my liking. So I went ahead and did that, and once that was all dry, make sure your paint is dry. You don't want any bubbles popping up under your resin. For this particular type of project, I do like using my UV resin, because I can go in and just spread it where I need it to be and pop it under that UV light. Now here you see I'm kind of tilting it and looking, because that metallic paint and the resin both have the same type of shine. So it was kind of hard for me to see the difference on where I was putting the resin and where the color was already shining. Getting into the creases in the side, I'm just using my fingers and my gloves. This doesn't have to be a thick coat. This is a thick piece of clay. And so it dried nicely, because it dried for 2 days. It has the layers of that paint, and I just wanted to put a layer of that resin over the top, front, back, and sides to give it a little bit more strength, and that makes a big difference on your smaller pieces. Since these were bigger, I didn't need a thick layer, or 2 layers even, as long as I got it all covered the first time around. On some of the thinner pieces, you'll see I go back and forth with some multiple layers. But this light, I went ahead, and it gives you 3 different settings, and I went ahead and put that on my highest setting the 3 times to go ahead and get a longer time under that UV light, so that it hardens faster without me having to take it out and test it. I just put it under there, let it harden, and don't worry about it. So once we get the last session in our UV lamp, we're ready to put some ribbon on it. Now I have some green satin ribbon here, and I cut it to about 3 inches. I am going to use my Fabri-Tac glue. I'm dabbing just a bit on the back there, and I put a little on each of my my bells, because it's easy to do all at once. This is not going to dry so fast that you're not going to be able to use it. I take my length of ribbon, I twist it into an awareness ribbon shape, and then I dip one into my Fabri-Tac, crisscross it, glue those together, and lay it right down on the back of my bell. This will help the ribbon from fraying, and that Fabri-Tac will hold this permanently. You won't have to worry about any of this coming off, and is the perfect size and shape for the back of these bells. It covers up, so it really didn't matter that you didn't paint the back of these. It worked out quite well. Super simple, super fast, and we are done now with our bells, and they are ready to actually hang on a tree. No problems there. And on to project number 2. Look at these adorable Christmas jewelry pieces. We are starting once again with our Sculpey air dry clay. I'm going to warm it up in my hands again, and I'm going to pull out a little bit of a few tools here. I have a roller, and then I have these straight edges that come in my clay toolkit. I'm using those to roll between to give me a consistency on this clay. I'm going to straighten out those edges just a little bit, and then I can come in and put those pieces right up against there. When I roll it, it's going to give me the same thickness all across my clay for when I actually use my cutters. So I'm going to come in first of all with my poop emoji. That's just funny. I know I've got poo here, but it's not going to be poo. We're going to make this into something a little different. Unless you wanted to make snowman poo, you can do that. I have my little birds, and I have my little longhorn cows. So those I'm just going to cut out, and I cut out 6 of each of those. So here I'm just showing you the 3 that I've gotten together. I'm going to go ahead and recondition that clay, get it laid out and rolled between my pieces again so they're all the same width. And I'm going to come back in with my little cows, and I'm going to go ahead and cut out the 6 of those that I wanted to use. And we're just going to, sometimes they get a little stuck up in those little corners. Just use one of your tools, pop it on through, and it's just fine. These little clay cutters are good. If you don't want it to stick like that, dip your clay cutter into a little bit of cornstarch, and then, you know, kind of knock it off, and it shouldn't have any issues to go through. Now these are still wet. The clay, I just finished cutting them. I'm taking my water pen and a little silicone tip there, and I'm just going around the edges so it doesn't look like I used a cutter on these, because it does use, it does leave a jagged edge around that clay. If you don't want that edge, you can easily put some plastic wrap over it before you cut it, and it will give you a nice rounded edge, so you don't have to go back through with this. So it's like I was lazy to get the cling wrap out, but then I come in and have to do this with my water pen. So here we go. So after I've gotten them all smoothed out, I'm taking these eye pins that you use for jewelry, and I'm sticking them straight down through the top and out the bottom. It can be tricky because they are thin, so just take your time. This is sped up quite a bit. Take your time, push it on down, feeling with your fingers, making sure that it's not coming through the back or the front and comes right out the middle. Now they're all dry. It has been one day for these. It did not take long for my little jewelry pieces to dry because they were so thin. I went ahead and pulled out my metallic acrylic paints again, and we are going to get started on the base coat for all of these pieces. And let's get started. We went ahead, and I'm going to go ahead, you and I, of course, I'm going to go ahead and put a base coat of this white metallic on our birds. I thought about making them like little doves, and you've seen it, the picture. I kind of went a different direction. But I went ahead and, you know, painted one side of each of those in a white, and then I came in with my Christmas trees. Let's change those little poos into some trees, and I think they turned out just fine. I went ahead and used that metallic green, which has a lot of blue undertones to it, but it's fine. It's very whimsical. I think they turned out adorable. So I'm coming in and I'm just putting my coat, my first coat on both of these, giving that base coat. There we go. It's a base coat on all of my trees, and I'm going to do the front and back of those as well. And I'm just using a little Dollar Tree plastic tray under there. That way I don't have to worry. It's going to get all yucky and have paint all over it, but it doesn't matter because it was $1. Back before it was $1.25, so, or $1.50 or $1.75. So, you know, I'm using my metallic brown for this cow. What a beautiful color this is. That metallic brown was just so pretty when I got, and you see it just covers nicely with one coat. I didn't have to come back and do a second coat on any of these. I did come back and do the backs, but you know, you needed to have the backs done if they're earrings, right? You don't want to have a naked back. And I wanted to make sure that they were covered because air dry clay, if it gets wet, and stays wet, it will dissolve. So even though I'm putting the paint on here, I wanted to make sure that they get sealed as well. So I'm going to go ahead and just finish painting all of these and get all the decorations, embellishments on them. And I want to make sure that all of that clay is covered. So I'm coming in here with a pencil and I'm drawing where I want that eye to be and where I want a little bit of a wing to come out and stand out a little different than the rest of the bird. So I did that on all of my birds. I only did one side for this because on the back side I just used some charm embellishments. I have these colors here and I thought I'm going to start and I'm going to do a red on these birds. I'm going to make a Christmas red bird and do some hand painting. So I just came in first of all with my little black dot. You see that one's facing different? Because I wanted it to be different for a pair of earrings so that they were both facing the same way or different ways. So they can face out away from you or both towards you. But because I'm going to be putting that red paint down, I wanted to make sure I had that black eye dotted where I knew I wanted it to be. Because I can get flighty. I don't think you know that, but yes, I can get flighty. So I went ahead and came in here with just my plain red, and it's very bright, but it's beautiful. It just looks nice. Now this one did take, on this white, it did take a little bit more than one coat because that white did pop through, but it's, what I did is I kept changing my color up just a little bit, and you'll see as I go through here, I paint the wings with this just plain red. And I'm going to come in now and I am going to mix a little of that red with a touch of black. And now you can see that that color is just a little bit different. It's a little darker than where that wing is, but I wanted it to stand out just a little bit where it didn't blend in because I didn't want to draw too much on the bird itself when I was done. But I wanted to give myself guidelines, and using it just a tad different color was perfect to do that. So I went in and I painted all of my birds on the remaining red areas with that little bit of red and black mixture, and it just turned out fine there. You can see that it needed to be a little bit darker or have at least another coat on it. So with my trees here, I came in with my gold metallic paint and coming over this green tree, it is barely showing up. So I'm coming back in again and I'm going to go ahead and do a few coats over this tree. And it's taking a little bit more because I'm putting light coats on it. I didn't want to come down with a heavy coat and not like it. So I'm coming in with a light hand and adding that gold like it is a garland coming across that tree. Now on my cow heads, I went ahead and took that gold and I'm going around the edge. What this is going to do for me is I have that dark brown cow head and I have the gold around the edge. So it gives a little difference in the colorings. When you look at it, you don't just have this dark cow head, you have some gold shining through on the side that just brings it up that little bit of a notch. So once I got all of those done, I'm coming in with my gold over the little beak. I will have to do the backs of these as well, and those turned out fine too, but I'm going to go ahead and just do my beak on all of these and use, I mean, it's easy enough to color a little triangle with a paintbrush. I did use one of my smallest paintbrushes, and now we're back to that tree. We're going to go ahead and pull some different colors out here, and I am going to make little dots all over this tree. They can be lights, they can be ornaments, whatever. The lighter ones, the bright ones like those, that yellow coming in, that can be like little lights popping on those trees. When I get all my yellows done, I will be coming in and adding all the other colors. Now I added this bright red here, but before I added the bright red, I used some of that darker red I used on the bird and added some darker red dots on there too. So I went ahead and finished up the birds what I could, and I'm coming in with my gold paint to do some hand painting on these. Now I don't have a steady hand anymore. I do tend to twitch and shake. So I'm trying to take my time, and I also have not had my eye surgery done yet. So guys, I really need to go get my cataract surgery done. Everything looks very dark to me anymore. So who knows what these look like after I get my surgery done. Maybe they look pretty funky. I don't know. Anyway, I'm just drawing a line on the outline of that wing, and then I'm just drawing up with my paintbrush. I'm going to take a little bit of that gold, dab, pull, lift, dab, pull, lift, dab, pull, lift. And it's giving me little leaves going up that bird wing. So once again, I'm coming in just with the stripe and then do those little leaves. And then I'm coming in on the tail feathers and just wisping a little bit of that on there. Now for my cows, trying to make the cows a little bit more holiday-ish. I'm going to use my resin, and I'm going to come in with some of these charms. I have different colors, and I wanted this to look Christmassy, so I found these little tiny stars. They're not your typical stars. These are like the North Star, where it is just long and beautiful. And so I pulled out some rose gold and I pulled out some gold. I pulled out one of each for each cow. Put a little dab of resin on there, and I'm going to use my little resin tool with that tip, and I'm going to dip it in there, put a little bit of resin on those two spots. I'm going to pull up my little pieces, and I'm going to navigate them over to the resin. It's too hard for me to do this with my gloves on, so I'm trying to be very careful here and use my tools as I guide those right on over. Dab, and that resin helps to pick that up. Those bigger ones are a little heavier, and lift it right on up, slide it right on over to where you've put that resin on there, and look at how pretty those are, those little stars on the top of the cow's heads. I'm going to go ahead and just go through my little light there, and they are all on there nice and sturdy. I'm going to come in with my resin. Now I am putting a thicker layer of resin on my jewelry because they are thinner. They're not as thick as the bells were, and so I wanted to make sure that I had a nice coat of this resin on there, and it will give me a hard sealer all over these jewelry pieces. Make sure I'm making sure I pushed it all the way out to the edge, because it will tend to pull back. You want to be careful because I don't want it going over the edge, but I also don't want it pulling away from the edge. So I did that front and back with all of my jewelry pieces. I took a little bit of fun fur, and I actually used my resin and glued that on the top of the cow's head. Can you see it up there in the corner? I went ahead and added some jewelry pieces to the tops, and I added some little clips to the tops of others to make so they can actually clip onto like a bracelet or a keychain. Super easy. I'm showing you here how easy it is to hook it on there. And it is, it doesn't quite match that silver one, but here's a silver necklace that I've already had done, and I'm just looping that right on over there. Actually, I had to open that jump ring because I already had the necklace made up. So I'm opening that jump ring, and then I'm squeezing it back together. When you open a jump ring, you do not pull it open to make a wider circle. You twist it to the side, and then you twist it back to close it. So I'm doing that, and now I've got that all on there nice and secure. And there we have our jewelry. There's the fronts and backs. You see I added some teardrops to the backs of those. On the back of the cows, I added those diamond shapes. And on the backs of the birds, I added a little teardrop, look like the wing, and a little moon, a little quarter moon to look like the eye. Look at how adorable those turned out. On to project number 3. Look, oh my goodness, I have this adorable nutcracker mold, and you see that the feet are not filled in. This is not a resin mold. You cannot pour resin in here. This works great with clay, and air dry is wonderful. You can use polymer on here as well, but I like to use the air dry. I can make it, set it aside, and while it's drying, work on something else. So once again, lots of detail in this mold. This one is made for clay though, not like that ice cube tray. So I am just working and pressing and pushing, and it takes me a few minutes here because I want it to be in there nicely. I don't want any air pockets. I don't want to pull it out and have missing embellishments on his jacket or his hands. I want to make sure that I've got it stuffed in there as good as possible. Using my palette knife, I'm pushing and cutting a little off the top. But what I found to work the best is to actually flip this thing over and press it down onto my board. And this pressed it in. Look, it pulled off a lot of those, the extra clay there. You can see where the arms are supposed to be open, where the legs are supposed to be open. Press it in there, give yourself a nice flat back, and after we do that, we're gonna pop this little baby in the freezer for about 20 minutes. Okay, maybe not yet. We're gonna use my water pen once again to smooth that back out. See how much it makes that clay so much more maneuverable? Because it starts to harden up, it starts to dry once you get it out of that package. So I did need to use a little bit of water on the back of there, but look at how smooth that is now. Absolutely beautiful. It's going to be so easy pressing those feet into my palette knife. Now we're going to pop this into the freezer. So I'm coming in with my brown metallic, and I had first painted these with the white because I did have high expectations of myself, and I'm going to come in and I'm going to paint those, and they're going to be beautiful, and I'm going to paint in the detail of the jacket, the red and the black and the white and the beard and the face. And then realization hit me that my hand is not steady. My eyes are not focused, and that would probably be a hot mess. So, trying to be real with myself, I went ahead and switched to this brown metallic acrylic paint, and I went ahead and covered the whole nutcracker here. I did both of my nutcrackers front and back with this beautiful brown metallic paint. Once those are done, we're going to go ahead and flip that right on over and paint the back of our ornaments. We want to make sure that they are covered. This also gives us another coat of something that's going to create a strong bond over the top of our ornaments. Once they're done, we are going to go ahead and put some Rub 'n Buff on them. Now I have 2 ornament hangers that I've created. I believe I have a video on those. I'll see if I can find it. Ooh, that silver Rub 'n Buff is really liquidy. But we're going to put some silver Rub 'n Buff over the top of one of these ornaments. I'm loving the look of this, and that silver hanger is going to be perfect on this. I'm just going to buff that out a little bit because it was so runny. I'm going to put a little bit more and kind of go over the back. I want that brown to show through, but I want that silver to be what you see. I'm using the antique gold on the second one. When I add that over this brown, it really pops and it helps. I've got that rose gold ornament hanger, and this is going to help blend that in. I couldn't believe how well that actually helped that ornament there. So I'm going to go ahead and paintbrush. I'm going to use a paintbrush to add a layer of my resin on the back of these. I'm using the paintbrush because it is a little easier on these types of projects. I can spread it out to the edge. I can make sure it's all covered. I don't want it pulling in. I don't want it overflowing. I want it to be nice across that back. I'm going to flip it over and do the same thing to the front. I'm now going to add my ornament hooks on there, give it a squeeze, and now my nutcrackers are done. I really love the way that these turned out. Tell me which one is your favorite, the gold or the silver? Now, these wreaths, I fell in love with these too. My two favorite out of all of these projects were the wreath and the nutcracker. I am using this rose wreath mold and I am pushing it on into there. There's a lot of detail in those roses. They're small, but they have a lot of detail. So I'm making sure I'm going in there nicely, pushing it in. I put a little water on my finger from my spray bottle and I'm just softening those edges because I don't want to pull it out of that mold. I'm going to go ahead and come in with my palette knife and spread that nicely. You can see it's not taking a whole lot after I wet the top of that clay. It just is going to smooth nicely out over that mold. I will be making 2 for 1 ornament. The first one I want to be very detailed, so I'm pressing, being very careful that I'm making sure it's in there nicely and smoothed all around those edges. I don't want any excess clay coming off of there and, you know, being a little bit of pain. I don't want to have to sand this too much because of the detail in there. The leaves, the leaf tips actually point out on this wreath, so I don't want to sand those off. I want this to be a nice, smooth piece of clay when I pull this on out of here. I'm going to go ahead and just flip that over, pull it out. Now the second one, I did not push it in as tight, and I'm just making it very loose. I'm going to score the back of this, and then I'm going to come in with my water. I'm going to score the back of my top piece, the back of my bottom piece, come in with a little bit of water on my finger, spread that around there. I spritzed it a little bit, spread it around, and then lay those two pieces together. Once those are on top and they're scored with that water, they are going to actually bind together, and I'm blending them on the outside and the inside edges of this piece. You can see that bottom piece there is not as detailed. I didn't want it to be. I wanted to have a specific one for the front and back. I wanted you to be able to tell the difference there. Once those are done, we are going to dry them for 2 days. When they are dry, we're going to come right on in. I'm going to start with my metallic red acrylic paint, and I'm going to take my time here and go around because there's a lot of detail. So I'm taking my little brush that has a fine point, and I'm just going around the edges first. I want that crease where I blended those two together to be covered up, and making sure that all of those little pieces of that rose wreath on top and bottom are getting covered with this. I have to go into a lot of creases there and a lot of detail for those roses to pop, but this was so worth my time. This video is sped up quite a bit for the painting purposes. I spent a week creating these and it just took a lot of time. Once that red was dry, I came right on in with my green and painted those leaves. There's leaves on the outside and leaves on the inside. And I, getting in to do that little bit of detail with that, it just changed the look of these wreaths so much. You can see here what a difference that made from the plain red until we get all of this green on here. Now you can tell that that green has a little bit of blue undertones, unless it's just my eyes. I'm really struggling, guys. I need to get my eye surgery done. But I really do like the way that, painting those leaves in that contrasting green really changed the look of these wreaths. Absolutely beautiful. I'm so pleased with it. Once those are all dry, I'm going to come in with my gold, antique gold. There we go. Get it out. Rub and buff, and I'm going to just put it right on top of there, and just on the tip of my finger, I want the tips of those roses to come out. I want that to be able to just be seen and pop. Oh my gosh, look at what a difference that gold makes on top of that wreath. Absolutely beautiful. And even with this paint, guys, I got that paint at Walmart. It feels so good on that wreath. It almost feels like I've already done a resin coating on it, and I didn't. It is such a good feeling on this clay paint, on this clay ornament. It does not feel like clay at all. I really love the way this is feeling and turning out. Now let's get the resin coating on top. This is going to be an easy one. We're going to get that resin, get my gloves on, put it on there, and I'm just going to use my fingers to rub it all around there. And we're going to get the inside, the outside, pop it in, and let it go through 2 cycles on my UV lamp. And then when that's done, I will flip it over and do the front. Wow, I love it. Oh my gosh, they are so pretty. Rubbing it, and this gives it a good coat on both sides. Once again, flip it over, run your bead around there, and I'm just rubbing it in. And these are so strong now that I've ran them through my UV light. I am really pleased. So I have this ribbon, and I'm like, oh, you know, the check would be a great farmhouse, but I'm looking at this. This is not farmhouse at all. So I'm going to go ahead and take some ribbon. I've cut it about 3.5 to 4 inches. I'm just doing a little finger bow there and pull that nice and tight. I'm going to come in with a little bit more of that ribbon after I've got that bow all nice and shaped. And I am just going to create a little, a little awareness ribbon. There we go. That glue will pop right on the back there. Now I did spread a little bit of that out across the bottom of my ribbon there because it was fraying on me, and I do not want this to fray. I want this to be able to be a beautiful piece in anyone's collection over the years. I'm going to add a little bit more Fabri-Tac on the top of that wreath right in front of that awareness ribbon and glue that right on down. Now because that ribbon was fraying, I'm going to add a little bit more to those bows as well. So once I get that Fabri-Tac on there and pop that up, I'm going to go ahead and shape and trim those ribbon tails. Usually a dovetail will work, and especially with something this small. I'm going to add a little bit of Fabri-Tac on the bottom of those ribbon pieces and glue them down to the top of that wreath so that they are not all willy-nilly, that they have a little bit of control in them. And there you have it, my friends. There are our air dry clay Christmas inspired items for this week. We have our cute little nutcrackers made to look like they are aged in the bronze and the silver. We have our beautiful little rose wreaths. Our poor little bells. Like I said before, the ice cube trays were not the best option for me, but they did turn out okay. And then, of course, the jewelry. Oh, I think those Highland cows are cute. The birds turned out absolutely adorable. The Christmas trees are whimsical and fun. And, of course, you can turn them into keychains and all sorts of things. So just use your imagination on those. Guys, thank you so much for joining me on this Christmas in July series. And guys, if you like this, give me a thumbs up and comment below with a bell emoji. Oh my goodness, because those are really not my favorites, but you know what? They are just fine. And if you've not subscribed, I do hope you will consider doing so now by hitting that subscribe button. If you hit that bell notification, YouTube should notify you the next time I am uploading a video. So, like, subscribe, comment, and share if you know somebody who would love to learn how to do this. Or, you know, my inspiration to you. I'm not necessarily a teacher, but I do want to inspire you to get out those cutters and those molds and shoot, use some Crayola air dry clay. That works well too, especially if you're going to put a resin over the top. Guys, thank you so much. Your time is precious and I appreciate you spending it with me. As always, stay safe, God bless, and bye for now.